So as we think about part D, we've been asked to justify our answer again. That's going to be important. We're looking for an absolute minimum value, and they've given us the closed interval that we are looking for. So of course our brain should be screaming, anytime we have an absolute maximum or a minimum, we're looking at our endpoints. We're going to need to test them. And we're going to look for any interior critical point What makes something a critical point? Of course, where the derivative, in this case we'll be talking about g prime, equals 0, or it could equal an undefined value. And so we've already come up with the derivative in the earlier part of the problem. G prime of x, well, the derivative of 3 was 0, so we were looking at just f of x. So this is really our derivative right there. And so we're wondering, well, where is the derivative 0 or undefined? Well, it's 0 right here at -1 and right here at a half. Why can I tell it's a half exactly? Because I know the slope of this is 2. So that x value is going to be a half. So I'm going to be looking at all of these points, x, and then I'm going to need to know, hey, what was g of x, so that I could see what was really the absolute maximum. So we should be looking at -2, because that's an endpoint, -1, because that's a critical point, 1/2, because that's a critical point, and 5, because that's an endpoint. But because we were looking for the absolute maximum, I know that we're going to have a minimum right here at x equals 1/2. This is going to be a min, so I can sort of rule that out. But I do know that at -1, because my derivative is going from positive to negative, this will be a relative max. We also know, because -1 is a relative max, this endpoint will be less than the relative max. So I can rule that out. So really, we just have to check then -1 and 5. Those are the places that we really have to check, but we would have to need to say why we were ruling out x equals -2 and x equals 1/2. So let's take a look and see what the value of g of 5 would equal. We know that our integral will be 3 plus -2 to, in this case, we're going all the way to 5 f of x dx. And we found this area on an earlier problem. We found that unknown portion is 44 minus 9 pi all over 4. We can add 3 to that. That's what g of 5 is. 3 plus 44 minus 9 pi over 4. Now I just need to look to see what is the value at this relative max at x equals -1. And so we can look there, we're really looking for g of -1 will equal 3 plus the integral from -2 to -1 of f of x dx. That's just going to be this blue area right here. And that's going to be a base of 1, a height of 1, divided by 2, or 1/2. So that means g of -1 is 3 1/2. So the question is, which is bigger? 3 plus 44 minus 9 pi over 4, or 3.5? And let's say we were not allowed to use a calculator. Well, without a calculator, with a calculator, by the way, it's pretty easy. This turns out to be 3.93. So we can see that this is greater than this, and we could say our maximum is 3.93. But without a calculator, I'd start to break up this denominator. 3 plus 44 over 4, well, that's going to be 11. So I could say I have 3 plus 11 minus 9 pi over 4. So that's going to be 3 plus 11 minus a little bit more than 27, 27 plus divided by 4. So this 27, if it was 28 divided by 4, that would be 7. So 3 plus 11 minus 7, this is about, right? This is just an approximation. But this is going to be way more, much greater than 3.5. And by the way, this was an error. This would have been 3 plus this 3.936, or 6.93. That's what this turns out to be with the calculator. But we know that this answer of 3 plus 44 minus 9 pi all over 4, that would be our absolute maximum. Those last parts of the problem are always the hardest because they use things throughout the problem, but they're really good to get major credit. That's kind of what gets you from a 4 to a 5.